All right. Hello, my name is Dr. Jesse Patrick Turner from the CCSU Literacy Center, and this is part 2, Don't Believe the Hype, of a 3-part video session where I talk about the status quo of inequity, reading wars, and that's the Don't Believe the Hype, and 3 will come back to the inequity and solutions. All right, so I want to begin this one with remembering the first time I met Barry Lane. Barry Lane from Discovery Writing and Force Field for Good is an incredible educator. And Barry Lane is working on a long-term, lifelong project of what is the purpose of public schools. And he's interviewed countless people, from Noam Chomsky to Howard Zinn, to David Berliner, to Yahoo Williams, to Julian Vasquez, to so many. He's interviewed so many people in this effort to talk about what's the purpose of public schools. So I want to come back to, in the first video I mentioned Horace Mann. Well, when Horace Mann sold public schools to us, he scared the business world by saying, because they're always thinking about money, and he said, money for schools now or prisons later. So they bought the public school idea. But his intention was to create public schools that would foster an understanding of democracy and preserve it and develop it further. And this is his idea. And so when we think about it, the goal of the public schools, is the goal of the public schools to prepare all students to do well in life, contributing their own being to society, and to prepare, for college and all those other things? Is that the purpose, to improve the world, the greater good, as Diane Ravitch would say? Is that the goal of the public schools? Or what if the goals of public schools was to do all of that for the wealthy, the affluent? And what about it for the poor, for children of color? The goal of the public schools was a school-to-prison pipeline. But one of the things along the way, so I want to get back to this thing because I said I'd talk about the reading wars. And the reading wars are not just reading. We come back time and time again to this deja vu of education reform, silver bullets. And we're told this is why kids are not learning. We never look at the inequity. We say they're not learning because of this. So if we did this, everybody would be a learner over there. So in the reading wars, I want to say we've been fighting over how much phonics or how little phonics, or how much literature or how little literature. Should we focus on comprehension, vocabulary, phonemic awareness, fluency, or shouldn't we focus on all 5 of them, which I do believe? But I'll give you an example. Right now we're talking about the science of reading. And do we talk about the science of math? Do we talk about the science of science? So let me come back to what the research that my science of reading friends don't want you to read, or what most education reformers don't want you to read. In 1968, the United States engaged in the largest study of first grades, 1,000 first grade classrooms, to find out what was the best methodology to teach children to read. And when it was all over with, what did they find? Phonics is important, but phonics alone is not enough. You need literature, and they also found out there was no one best methodology. They also found out that what teachers believed played a role. So we got that notion. So in '68, we did the science that many of my ed reform people don't want to do, and we couldn't prove there was one best way to teach reading. In 2000, the National Reading Panel report came out, and when we analyzed that and we dug deep into that, they came out and said, well, literacy, you need to do phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And what reading researcher would have any disagreement with that? But really, when we dig deep into the analysis, we find that what it really tells us is phonics instruction is important, but it needs to be combined with literature, and phonics alone is not enough. So when we talk about the science of reading, I want them to talk about all 5 of those areas. And when they do that, I feel better. But most times I'm hearing the that don't believe the hype stuff. They're not teaching phonics. I don't know any elementary schools that are not teaching phonics in the United States of America. And I've been doing this job over here for 25 years as the director of our literacy center. We're all teaching phonics, and so coming back to that final thing, and in this, now we have the science of reading claiming the same thing. The science is all done. Trust me, science is never done. How can we say the science is done? The science of COVID is done because we have a vaccine. There may be a better vaccine tomorrow. There may be a cure, and 3 months down the road. Science is never done, and we should be looking. Last one final piece. The first grade studies are not alone. In 2002, George Bush, we had No Child Left Behind, guaranteeing that every child by third grade would be a reader, a writer, and being able to do math at grade level if they used one of 5 scientifically based reading programs. And we created 10,000 reading first schools across the country. For 6 years, we funded them. We gave them an extra $6 billion. We gave them training. We gave them curriculum materials. And at the end of that 6 years, what happens? Well, we found out they did somewhat better on isolated components of reading, like maybe they'll sounds of decoding things. But when it came to comprehension, every single grade had a loss of comprehension. So now we have to ask ourselves, when the scientifically based reading programs were used, they lost comprehension. Oh, and one more trick before I leave. The one group that showed growth was the control group. That's the group that did nothing different. Don't believe the hype. Reading wars, let's talk about equity.